Hi, Sydney. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing great. I love Echo a lot because the street level heroes in the Marvel universe are kind of my favorite to dive into just because I think they're all so fascinating. And what I love about this show is even though it is its own standalone thing, it is still very tied to that New York vibe, with not only Kingpin, but we had Daredevil in it, and there's all these characters that are so New York. To take it out of New York and put it somewhere else, how do you still keep that tone alive when it is so important to a character like Maya, but we're learning a different side of her?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it all like everything kind of stems from like the themes we wanted to explore, right? Like so it was always we always knew that we were going to have we wanted Kingpin and Maya were gonna their relationship was gonna be kind of at the heart of our series, and we knew she was gonna have to return back to Oklahoma.
Mhm.
But I think thematically, it was really the series was really about sort of an exploration of the definition of family, right? And so when you come to the series, like Maya has a definition and outlook of what family is, and she's very secure in that sort of definition. And then over the course of the series, we kind of challenge those preconceived notions she has, and then obviously by the end of the series, she's changed and different, and she has a different. She's presented with a different sort of scenario of what family is, right? And so
Mhm.
with that in mind, then we kind of started building everything up from there. And I think like you said, it was like, okay, what does New York look like to her? What does Oklahoma look like to her? And so I think that to me was where the fun was, because again, I'm Native, I'm Indigenous, and so I always knew I didn't want her to go back to her reservation, and it's like, oh, it's like this, what we'd call poverty porn, and it was just like
Mhm.
depressing, place. No, it's a bright, vibrant, colorful place. It's a world that is already in progress, and there's all these people that, um, have lives, have jobs, and they're not waiting around for her to show up and save things. Scully's got his pawn shop. Bonnie's her EMT. Everyone's got their own thing going on, and so, but then in my experience, like the reservation I grew up on, it's this bright, thriving place, and it can be hugely sort of colorful and vibrant, and we try to lean into that, especially with, I mean, obviously with the powwow. Um, and so, but to create that juxtaposition, we kind of presented a version of New York that kind of skewed a little bit more, of Maya operating the shadows. And so our color palette wise, we kind of lean into more like rusts and metals and steels, and you might think bright lights, big city, but actually the bright lights, and the color is actually on the Oklahoma side. And so, we wanted to build something that was uh, tonally and thematically the same, but visually different to create an arc, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's so cool. Such a cool way to look at it because, like, I love the juxtaposition of all of the people that are back on the reservation who, like, the way that she kind of interacted about going home and all that stuff, you would be like, oh, these people were probably miserable, or she doesn't like them, or they were mean to her, and then they all just genuinely love Maya, and they're fun
Yeah.
and vibrant characters to kind of live in that world with. Was that part of your plan to kind of make that vibrancy come to life, to have characters like Bonnie who like so deeply love Maya and is so happy that she's back, but has to kind of get like not get in with Maya, but like push to get her to like be honest with her, and like other characters who are just like hilarious when we do get to spend some more time with them as it goes.
Yeah, yeah, it was all about, yeah, you're exactly right. It was all about sort of finding the the different layers, different strata, and then like it's a diverse, complex, complicated sort of world she's going back into, and it's like these aren't hillbilly country yokels just sitting around leading simple lives, and so it was all about trying to flesh out each individual character, and they all have their own wants, needs, desires, and I think, but they're all kind of connected by this one traumatic event that happened, which is the death of Maya's mother. And so, but this is all 20 years, in the past for everybody. But we get a chance to. It's the one thing that connects everybody together, and through that we get to see how everybody has coped, adapted, not adapted, not coped with this event. You know, Bonnie's adapted in one way, Maya's adapted in another way. Chula, you know, again, one of the things that we really want to explore was not having, you know, indigenous characters who were like, you know, like, oh, this is grandmother Willow, and you know, she's
Yeah.
gonna give the all-knowing all advice, you know, whatever, blue corn moon, you know, whatever the fuck, you know, and so, but like even the character of Chula, who's kind of the family matriarch, she's fallible, you know, she did things that she didn't mean to do, and she's made mistakes, and I mean, to me, that was the kind of the that was the exciting part, and that was the fun part to be, which is in those kind of gray areas.
Yeah, and to switch gears a little bit, I live in New York. When they were filming Daredevil here, I was so excited because they were filming in Hell's Kitchen. I was like, finally, they're filming one of these Marvel things in Hell's Kitchen. But what I really find, so like I love Daredevil. So that fight between Daredevil and Maya, I was obsessed with the minute I watched it. But then you guys managed to one up it with that bowling alley fight where she literally busts through a wall to like take people out. And it's so cool to kind of see how these fights on like again like that street level Marvel side just keep upping the ante of what these heroes can do. Was it always important for you guys to make sure that like we see as the audience that Maya is not limited in any way and that her fight sequences are go just as hard as every other hero that we get to see?
Yeah, yeah, you know, yeah, that was, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Is that we really wanted to, you know, like the keywords early on were like visceral, grounded, gritty, you know, and I think it was, you know, now having the benefit of hindsight and everything, and what we're trying to tell the story was like, you know, I think there was, we didn't want the series to be about the fate of the universe, or, you know, these huge, like, cosmic kind of like, you know, stakes. And we wanted to tell something a little more intimate in scope and scale, but that allowed us to literally be street level. And of course, you know, we're all fans of the Netflix Daredevil series. And so that was you know, that was a touchstone for us. And, you know, we had a great stunt coordinator, Mark Skizak. And so in the fighting and the choreography and everything, it was sort of, you know, not to talk out of both sides of my mouth, but it was sort of like we didn't want to hold back, but then we also wanted to embrace the aspects of the character that made her different and unique and special,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
And so like you get, and you know, obviously our stunt team did a phenomenal job, and even like a Daredevil fight, there's, I mean, obviously it's Daredevil, and we have a great fight sequence, but there's like, you know, we're saying, well, she's got an amputated leg, and he doesn't know that, and they managed to build in this little small detail where he gets the baton, he slams it down her shin, and you just hear a clink, you know, and so it was really about both painting in the corners, but then not sort of like not treating her with, you know, any sort of like you know, not trying to overcompensate for things, and just, you know, like, she's a badass, you know, period,
Mhm.
full stop. And, you know, we really tried to lean into that.
Yeah, it's so interesting because you say that, and it's like I think about it, it's like, well, no one knows that Daredevil is blind when he's fighting someone. They know Matt is, but they don't know Daredevil. So it's also like two characters fighting each other who don't know what the other one is like working with. And that's such an interesting way to kind of look at that fight. But I also love that this series is, as much as it is about Maya going home and reuniting with her family and kind of understanding that, it is still also about her separating herself from what she did in New York and from Uncle like Wilson Fisk. But was it always your guys' intention to like make those two storylines kind of coexist at the same time? Or did one kind of inform the other when you guys were working on the series?
As far as like the Fisk Maya Lopez
Yeah, and how they
story,
kind of like end up like not paralleling each other, but how one kind of informs her decisions on the other one with like Fisk.
the other one being like her the family storyline, the Oklahoma storyline.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think they definitely went kind of hand in hand with each other. You know, we knew it was going to be the Fisk Maya Lopez sort of relationship at the heart of the series, and then by taking her out of New York and putting her in Oklahoma, we got to sort of like challenge her sort of preconceived notions of basically her worldview, and challenge that sometimes you gotta, yeah. What's the Aaron Sorkin masterclass? It's like at the beginning you put your character up a tree and then you start throwing rocks at them. Like that's really what it was about. And so it was like you had this great sort of like core central conflict in that, like um uh, Fisk is New York, but then what happens when you take him out of New York? Like one of my favorite moments was seeing Kingpin walking down the hallway of this little res home, kind of looking around, and you know, uh, Maya pours the wine down the drain, and she gives him like Shasta soda, which is like for me, like growing up on the res, it was like that was like when you couldn't afford Coke, you got Shasta. So it was a very, very fun. I don't know if I answered the question.
No, you did. And well, it was funny because you said Aaron Sorkin, and I instantly was like, well, now I want to see Kingpin and Maya doing a walk and talk, just like walking with each other and doing the walk and talk Sorkin move. Um,
Little West Wing walk and talk. Yeah.
yeah, just walk together. Um, but for our last question, what I like just really love about this universe is these characters have all these real issues, but then at night they have to kind of go and put all that aside and like defeat these people, but then come back to those real issues during the day. And it's why I think the street level is so much more interesting than a lot of the other kind of more like galactic things that are happening in Marvel. With Maya, she kind of has her own resolution and what she wants to do moving forward. But are there stories that you can still see with Maya Lopez in the future? Because I was mad she wasn't ever in those Daredevil set picks. I was like, where's Maya? She can come back and help Matt. I believe she'd do it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think for, I mean, even the final scene in the series, it's like, I think just for myself, I'm like, shit, what's that conversation like, at the barbecue? Like, like I almost want to, I almost think there's a world where you just pick things up continuously. Like, holy shit, remember that? Oh, sorry, I don't know what that, but do you remember that? Like, that was crazy last night, right? When you got the powers and then grandma like, threw the guy across the room and like, like even that and then where does Maya go from here? Where does, obviously we're gonna find out where Kingpin goes and we may or may not find out where Maya goes, um but even that is something I would be fascinated by to explore.
Yeah,
What's the
I
morning after like,
yeah, but when everyone's just sitting around eating breakfast, like that was kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But thank you so much for talking with me. I loved Echo a lot, and I think it's great, and I want to go back with Maya time and time again because I love her.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Yeah.
Bye.